Well, I want to thank Bob for bringing out the notes. You're my man. And I brought Dick with me so he could be here. I hated to be the first one to bring him out, so I do appreciate Bob. I didn't know Dick when he was in high school, but I've heard a lot of stories about him. He was a big guy. He was over 6 foot tall, muscular, and a very handsome guy. He was more into partying and fighting, they seemed to go together, than studying. He had no college plans whatsoever. He told me that he worked at every factory in the area, and we used to have a lot of factories in Alton. Well, he worked at every factory, he said, for at least a week. That's about all it lasted. Literally, he said that's what happened. I think one was 2 weeks. Jobs got in the way of fun, and that's what he wanted to do, is have a lot of fun. Finally, he did get a job as a delivery boy for the Coca-Cola company. He rode on the truck with the driver, and he loved that job. So his new life goal was to move up to be in the driver position. All that changed in June 18th, 1967, when he had an auto accident and broke his neck. He became a quadriplegic. He could no longer use his brawn, so he had to use his brain. Thankfully, SIUE had been built and was close by. He found he loved learning after all. I bet his teachers were surprised from high school that he did. And his brain had always been his greatest asset. While attending here, he became active in the Disabled Student Association and even did a regular radio program on the SIU station about disabilities and people with disabilities. That opportunity gave him a voice to address various issues he found important in his new role in life as a person with a disability. He always put person first and the disability that followed. That was just the beginning of using his voice. He continued on his studies and received his master's degree from this great institution. That opened many doors for him as he worked in the private sector. But he loved the disability movement, and he wanted to use his knowledge and skills obtained while here, along with his lessons of life had taught him as a disabled person. You get a new perspective when your body changes after having been an able-bodied person. He helped organize the nonprofit group called Impact in 1985, and he, as they said, was the executive director there for 19 years until his health forced him to resign that position. He touched many lives and made our communities and schools more open and accessible to all people. He was always fighting to make sure that things were easier for the people with disabilities. In fact, I should have demanded, he would be smiling tonight, if I had demanded there be a ramp over here for us to get up, because honestly, he had come to SIU at times and was supposed to be a presenter and couldn't get on the stage with people. So needless to say, he was always educating. And we all need to be reminded that all areas need to be made accessible. And this school has done a wonderful job of doing that and putting in elevators and doing the things that are needed. He used his voice to train other centers for independent living and spoke at national and state conventions. He also spoke before the Illinois Senate Appropriations Committee about the wages of personal assistance. You know, people who become disabled don't always have family around to help them, and they can't get out of bed even on their own. So they have to hire personal assistants. And those are strangers that they meet sometimes for the first time to come into their home. Sue Suter, who happened to be the head of the Department of Rehab for the state of Illinois, has told this story so many times, and every time I see her, she's always mentioning this story. She was testifying before this appropriations committee at the state because she was the head of the agency about how they needed more funds for the PA system, the personal assistant funding. But it just didn't seem to be hitting home with them. But she had Dick testify, and he had a way of using his voice and really being heard. he was a very good speaker, and he used the example of having, as a disabled person, to give his home key, his house key, to so many PAs so that they could get in and take care of him, come in and get him up and get him in his wheelchair. And he had to give out lots of keys to them in 1 year because they were making such low wages. They would have to find other work. They just couldn't make it on their funding. He asked those people on that committee how many of them would like to give their house key out to that many times in 1 year. Now, Sue tells the story that Dick said he gave out 14 keys in 1 year. Now, either he's a real hard guy to work for, or he was single at the time, and he might have just been giving out keys because he wanted to. Dick always laughed and said that the key number just got bigger and bigger every time Sue told it, and she told it all over the country. Dick always thought that was so funny. But he did end up making an impression on them because it did pass. And many have said it turned on his testimony. He made it visual so that they could see what was really happening, using his voice that SIU helped him to develop. It is really sad that Dick can't be here to receive this great honor. But Dick fills my heart. He wrapped himself around my heart when I met him as a disabled person who had such a spirit about him that you were just drawn to him. And he filled my heart, and he's still in my heart. So where I am, he is too. He died from colon cancer, not his disability, June 13th. The letter came just a few days after he passed away, so he didn't even know that he had the honor coming. But he always told me about his Uncle Bum cook who worked here. I think maybe he was the head of maintenance for several years here at SIUE. Dick always spoke so proudly of how somewhere at SIUE there was a plaque on a wall with Bum's name on it. He just thought that was the neatest thing, that his Uncle Bum somewhere, now Uncle Bum had a horse come in the kitchen and drink beer, so you have to know Uncle Bum to appreciate this. Dick idolized Uncle Bum. And somewhere on a wall, Uncle Bum's plaque hangs, and he just thought that was so neat. And now, even though I can no longer hear Dick's voice, and others will be able to see that plaque, I and others will be able to see that plaque here at SIU Hall of Fame and know that Dick's voice has been heard. He made an amazing difference in the lives of those who knew him, but also he paved the way for the lives of those who didn't know him, the disabled in the generations to come. As we drove in this evening, we passed a gal in her power wheelchair, like Dick had, rolling down the sidewalk, and I said to Dick's brother and sister, you know, she couldn't even be here if Dick hadn't helped pave the way. You know, he made a difference. He's thankful. He was very thankful to have SIU this close to him. SIU helped him find his voice, use it to make a real impact. And he began impact. It didn't stand for anything except making an impact. And SIUE made an impact on his life, changed his direction, and then he was able to impact so many others. I thank you so much for honoring him. I do wish he could have been here. You'd have loved to hear him talk. He's a great guy, and he's going to be missed by many. But now he can be remembered by many, many who will go by and see that plaque and know that he made a difference in this world. Thank you.